Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. Was ready to testify on behalf of my husband in a legal dispute with his ex. The night before, his mother told me, "Don't go. You'll only make it worse." I shut up anyway, and found my statement had been altered. In court, my husband denied knowing me. "She's unstable," he said on record. I tried to speak, but the judge read from a psychiatric file I'd never seen before. I traced it back to a clinic, and the signature authorizing it was from, "I never thought my life could collapse so fast." My name's Anna Parker, and I live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, until it got ripped away piece by piece. I met Matt at a 4th of July barbecue 6 years ago. He had that easy charm, the kind that makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. We dated fast, married faster. Looking back, there were warning signs. How he talked about his ex, Rachel, like she was pure evil. How he'd shift blame when things went wrong. But I didn't see it. Or maybe I didn't want to. Rachel had a son with Matt, Jason. At first, I tried to keep my distance, but when the custody battle started, Matt pulled me in. He said Rachel was lying, said she was trying to ruin his life, take Jason away just to hurt him. He told me I was the only one who could help him. I believed him. I spent nights writing a statement for court, going over everything I knew. I had texts from Rachel, messages that showed she was trying to keep Jason from Matt, playing games. I wrote about how Matt cared for his son, how he tried to be a good father, even when Rachel made it hard. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. The night before the court hearing, Matt's mother, Elaine, called me. "Don't go tomorrow," she said. Her voice was flat, almost cold. I asked why. She didn't answer. She just repeated it slower this time, like it was a warning. "Don't go. You'll only make it worse." I barely slept that night. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't figure it out. So I showed up at the courthouse the next morning like I promised Matt I would. I sat down in the gallery, heart racing, ready to testify. Then they handed me the file with my statement. It wasn't mine. It looked like mine, but the words, my words, had been changed, twisted. Now it read like I was some bitter, unstable woman with a grudge against Rachel. Like I had a personal vendetta, like I was trying to poison the case out of jealousy. My stomach dropped. I tried to get Matt's attention across the room, but he wouldn't look at me. Then the lawyer asked Matt if he knew me. Matt looked right at me, and said, "I don't know her. She's unstable. She's not part of my life." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The judge opened a file and started reading. Psychiatric records, delusions, hallucinations, aggression, a danger to myself and others, a diagnosis of severe personality disorder. I'd never been in a psych ward, never had an evaluation like that, never. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. The judge just shook his head and told me to sit down, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. It was like I didn't exist. After the hearing, I went home and sat on the floor of the living room. I stared at the walls, the carpet, the family photos, all lies. I thought about that call from Elaine, about how Matt wouldn't look at me, about the statement that wasn't mine. I started digging. I pulled every record I could get my hands on. Weeks passed. I didn't sleep much, barely ate. My hands shook every time I opened another document. That's when I found the clinic in Des Moines. They had a file on me. I drove down there, my stomach in knots, my fingers gripping the wheel so hard, I thought I might break it. The woman at the front desk gave me a tight smile. I asked for my file. She handed it over like it was nothing. It said I'd been evaluated for mental health issues under court order. Said I'd been diagnosed, treated, monitored. That was a lie. And then I saw the signature at the bottom of the authorization form. Matt's name, Matt's signature. The date, 3 months before the court hearing, right when the custody battle started heating up. I felt my hands go numb. My ears were ringing so loud I couldn't hear the receptionist asking if I was okay. Matt had done this. Matt and his mother, they had planned this. They wanted me out of the way, and they didn't care how they did it. I sat in my car in the clinic parking lot for hours staring at that paper. I knew right then, if they wanted war, I'd give them war. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the paper, with Matt's signature burned into my mind. The man I married, the man I trusted, had lied to the court. He'd lied to me. He'd set me up to take the fall, to make me look crazy, just so he could win a custody battle. The next morning, I called the clinic again. I demanded the full record. They faxed it over, 30 pages, all signed off by the same doctor, Dr. Leo Turner. I didn't know the name, but I knew I had to find him. I drove to Des Moines again, stormed into the clinic, and demanded to speak with Dr. Turner. They told me he wasn't available. I told them I'd wait all day if I had to. Hours later, he walked into the lobby, looked at me like I was a problem, and asked what I wanted. I told him I wanted the truth. He pulled me into his office, closed the door, and sat down across from me like I was wasting his time. I told him I'd never been evaluated by him. He shrugged. I get referrals all the time, he said. Court orders, family petitions. I don't meet every patient. Sometimes I sign off based on provided documentation. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I asked who provided the documentation for my file. He scrolled through his computer, then stopped. His eyes narrowed slightly. Says here it was a family member, Matthew Parker. That was it. That was all I needed to hear. Matt forged a court-ordered mental health referral. Or maybe he used some loophole to make it happen. Either way, Dr. Turner didn't care. He didn't even know if the paperwork was real. I left the clinic shaking with rage. Back home, I tried to confront Matt. He didn't answer his phone. He didn't come home that night. Elaine wouldn't answer my calls either. I started looking into their lives, everything I could, and that's when I found out Matt had been spending a lot of time at Rachel's house. It wasn't just about Jason. There were photos, social media posts I hadn't seen before, comments from mutual friends, Matt and Rachel at a charity event, Matt picking Jason up from soccer, Rachel standing next to him smiling. It all clicked into place. Matt didn't just want custody. He wanted his old life back. Rachel, Jason, the whole package. I was just a roadblock. I was furious, but I wasn't stupid. If Matt could fake mental health records and lie under oath, he could do worse. I needed to be smart. I called a lawyer, someone I found through a friend who had been through a nasty divorce. I told him everything. He said I didn't have a case unless I could prove Matt's signature was forged or show a clear motive. I told him I'd get both, so I started digging deeper. I requested court transcripts, the altered statement, everything I could get my hands on. I talked to the notary who signed off on the court documents. She barely remembered Matt, but she said she'd notarized a few things for him over the last few months. I asked if she verified his identity. She looked uncomfortable but said yes. It didn't add up. Then I checked our home security footage. We had cameras in the living room and driveway. Matt always said it was for safety. What I found made my blood run cold. 2 weeks before the court date, I saw Elaine in the living room rifling through my office desk. She took papers, my statement, my personal notes. Later that same day, Matt was in the driveway loading a file box into his car. That was the day my psychiatric file had been created. I knew I needed more. I started following Matt. I'm not proud of it, but I had to know. He was at Rachel's house almost every night. Jason was there too. They were playing Happy Family while I was sitting alone in the house drowning in betrayal. One night, I parked, down the block, and watched. Matt came out of the house, kissed Rachel on the porch, and got in his car. I snapped a photo. It wasn't enough yet, but I was getting closer. I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to destroy them. They thought they could erase me from the picture. They had no idea who they were messing with. I knew I needed more than photos. I needed proof that could hold up in court. So I started digging into Elaine's past. I knew she was the key to this whole thing. She was the one who warned me not to show up at court, the one who had been in my house stealing my documents. I found an address in Davenport, an old storage unit registered in her name. I drove there one afternoon, my hands shaking so bad I could barely grip the wheel. The place was half abandoned, with rusted-out units and broken locks. I waited until no one was around. Then I used a crowbar to get into Elaine's unit. Inside were boxes, old family photos, junk, but also legal files, lots of them. One folder was labeled Custody Battle, Rachel and Matt. I opened it and felt like I was going to throw up. Inside were copies of emails between Elaine and Rachel. They'd been talking for months, way before the court case started. Elaine had been feeding Rachel information about me, my job, my health, insurance, my personal life. She had even sent Rachel a draft of my court statement before I gave it to Matt. That's when I found the worst part. A signed affidavit notarized from a doctor named Dr. Leo Turner. Yes, the same one from the clinic. It said that I had been under mental health supervision for the past year based on family concerns. And right next to that, a signed letter from Rachel thanking Elaine for her help in securing Jason's future. That was it. That was the proof. Elaine and Rachel had worked together to destroy me. Matt was just the idiot who went along with it. But I wasn't done. I took photos of everything, every page, every signature. Then I went to Rachel's house. I parked across the street and waited. My hands were shaking, but I was done waiting. For someone else to save me. When Matt pulled into the driveway, I got out and walked right up. He looked shocked to see me. Rachel opened the door, her face going pale. I held up my phone. "Game's over," I said. "I have everything. Every lie, every forged document, every email, every signature." Matt tried to play dumb. "I don't know what you're talking about, Anna." Rachel tried to smile like I was a crazy person. "Anna, maybe you should leave." But I wasn't backing down. "You think you're smart. You think you can erase me?" I was yelling now. My voice was shaking, but I didn't care. "I'm taking this to the cops, to the judge, to every lawyer in this damn town. You set me up. You're going down." Elaine appeared behind them looking smug, but I could see her eyes shift when I said the cops. She knew I had her. Matt tried to grab my arm, but I pulled back. "Don't touch me." That's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. I filed a police report the next morning. Brought everything. The emails, the documents, the clinic records, the photos of Matt and Rachel playing house while they ruined my life. The detective took one look at the pile of evidence and said, "Jesus Christ." It wasn't long before the investigation started. Matt and Rachel's custody case was reopened. The judge ordered an emergency review. Elaine was called in for questioning. Dr. Turner got subpoenaed too. Matt tried to spin it, but the emails between Rachel and Elaine were damning. Rachel lost custody of Jason. Matt's psychiatric evidence was thrown out as fraudulent. Elaine was charged with perjury, falsifying documents, and obstruction of justice. Dr. Turner lost his medical license. Matt tried to save himself, but the judge tore into him for perjury and contempt of court. He was fined, publicly humiliated, and eventually lost visitation rights to Jason altogether. But the real moment that stuck with me, the day Matt called me from a payphone because no one else would talk to him and asked me if we could start over. I didn't even answer. I let the phone ring until it cut off. I sat in my car that day, in the parking lot of the courthouse, and let it all sink in. They tried to destroy me. They tried to erase me. But in the end, they destroyed themselves, and I was still standing. Thought it was over when the judge ruled against them. I thought justice had been served, but I was wrong. Matt wasn't done. A week after the hearing, I came home to find a brick thrown through my front window. A note taped to it, scrolled in messy handwriting, crazy. "Stay out of our lives," no signature, but I knew it was Matt. I called the police. They took a report, but nothing happened. The brick was just the beginning. My car tires were slashed, my mailbox smashed. An anonymous tip called into my job saying I was unstable and dangerous. I knew it was Matt and Rachel trying to keep the pressure on me, make me back down, but I wasn't backing down. I was done playing defense. I hired a private investigator. It cost me nearly everything I had left, but it was worth it. I told him I wanted everything. Their finances, their communications, their dirt. 2 weeks later, he called me. "Anna," he said, "you're not going to believe this." Rachel had been skimming money from her employer, a small medical clinic in town, over $30,000 in false reimbursements. The PI got copies of the transactions and even photos of her handing cash to Matt behind a gas station. It was all tied together. Rachel was stealing to fund Matt's legal fees and their lifestyle, and Matt knew about it. I took it all, every photo, every document, and marched straight to the county prosecutor's office. I laid it out on the desk and said, "You want fraud? You want conspiracy? Here it is." Rachel was arrested within a week. Matt tried to cover for her, but when the feds got involved because Rachel's clinic took Medicaid funds, he panicked. I watched it all unfold day by day. Matt's face in the news. The headlines: local father tied to Medicaid fraud scandal. Rachel Adams charged with embezzlement and conspiracy. Matt Parker under investigation for fraud and perjury. Elaine tried to stay quiet, but the walls closed in on her too. Turns out the PI also found bank transfers. Elaine funneling money to Matt's legal fund. When the feds subpoenaed her records, she cracked like an egg. They all turned on each other. Rachel blamed Matt. Matt blamed Elaine. Elaine tried to blame Rachel. It was a mess, and I loved every second of it. Matt lost everything. His house, his job, his reputation, his perfect family with Rachel. Rachel was sentenced to 5 years for fraud. Elaine, the matriarch who thought she was untouchable, ended up with felony charges and a public shaming in the local paper. Matt, he got slapped with multiple counts: perjury, conspiracy, fraud, and ended up with a suspended sentence. But his name was ruined. No one would hire him. His friends abandoned him. Even Jason wanted nothing to do with him. And me? I rebuilt my life slowly, painfully, but I did it. I moved out of Cedar Rapids, found a new job in Chicago. Matt called me once from a blocked number. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. His voice sounded small, hollow. "Anna, I'm sorry. I deleted it." I never spoke to him again. They tried to bury me, but in the end, they buried themselves. That's the thing about betrayal. It cuts deep. But when you survive it, you come out sharper, stronger, and ready to make them pay. I didn't just survive them. I destroyed them. And I don't regret a damn thing. Not one.